welcome back to Urban Flower Collective. My name's Lisa and I'm your host here. If this is your first tutorial, then a really warm welcome. If you've been here before, then welcome back. So today it's a really snowy day here in Sheffield, but it's spring. It's the beginning of March when I'm filming this, and in my garden there's lots of little crocuses popping up. They're really colourful, they're lovely little spring flowers, so today that's what we're going to be making. So I've made some earlier. You can see I've put these in a planter and they make a really nice spring decoration, or you can see how nice these would look on the top of a cake, just one or two on a cake, or around a cake board even. If you drilled little holes in the cake board, you could put these around the cake. So they're really versatile, really remind you of spring, and they add a lovely little splash of colour. So let's get started. I'll show you what we need to start off with. So today I'm using my favourite ultrafine modelling paste. I'm just going to use white today, and we can colour this up. For these, actually, for the purple ones, because these are the colours that were in my garden, the purple and yellow as well, I did put a touch of purple and a touch of yellow in there to start with, but then dusted the rest up. But I shall show you that a bit later on. So we're using this ultrafine paste. You use whatever paste you prefer, whatever suits your climate best and whichever you prefer to work with. So that's the paste. We're going to need a little bit of egg white or edible glue, so I've got that there. We are going to need some kind of cutter. Now, I don't have a proper crocus cutter, but looking at the shape of the crocus, I usually take them apart to see how they're put together. I found that the correct shape for it is a Magnolia cutter. So I'm using this Magnolia cutter. I've got a set of 3 here and I'm using the smallest one. You could probably go even smaller than this one, but I'm using the smallest one I've got, and I'm using a Magnolia Veiner as well. So a crocus has really straight veins on it, so a rose vein or a peony vein or anything like that is a little bit too networked. You know, the veins are a bit all over the place. What you need is something that's going to give straight veins. If you haven't got a veiner that's got straight veins, you can always make some in there with a veining tool yourself. And I'll show you that when we get onto the leaves. We're going to need a ball tool. I'm using a kind of medium-sized ball tool, a Dresden tool. We're going to need some florist tape and florist wire. And today I'm going to be using some 20 gauge wire, some 24, and either 26 or 28 for the little centres. We're going to need some dusts, and I've got yellow, purple, green and orange. These are all fractal colours. And a rainbow dust sunflower, and some brushes to use with that. When we get onto the leaves, I've got a daffodil leaf veiner, but I'm not really going to use the veins. I'm going to show you how to vein it, but we'll get onto that when we get to the leaves. I've got a rolling pin. I've got some dessert spoons. Now I've just got these plastic dessert spoons that are really reasonable. You can get these on Amazon. I find that they're really easy to stack and keep and wash. So I've got those for drying our petals on. As I say, a small rolling pin, and I've got a foam pad. This is just dimple foam and I'm going to use the back of it. So a sponge pad and a petal pad. So I think that is about everything. So let me bring over my paste. I've already rolled it out, so you don't have to watch me rolling it out. I've rolled this out on my pasta machine. I'm just having a look to level 7. We don't want it super fine, because there is a little bit of meat to these petals. They are a little bit more chunky than your sort of rose or your peony or anything delicate and fluffy like that. So we need a little bit of meat on it. If you just roll it out with a rolling pin, that's absolutely fine as well. I can just about see my hand through it on this white paste. So we've got that. Now we're going to start with the petals because we'll leave these to dry while we make the centre. So taking that small that small Magnolia cutter, I'm going to cut out 6 of these. Now if you're slow at working on your petals, you can put them straight back in this petal protector just to keep them moist while you are working on them. If you haven't got a petal protector, a polythene document wallet would just do exactly the same job. So we need 6 of these. Try and get a nice clean cut. So that's 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to keep this paste to make our centre and to get these petals on the wires. So let's bring over our petal pad. You don't need a petal pad with holes in, it's just my other one is white and you're not going to see these white petals on it. So just a plain petal pad will do. So you need something just a little bit firm to work on these petals to start with. So I'm just going to do all 6 at once. As I say, if you're a bit more slow, then just do 2 at a time or 3 at a time. So I'm going to take our ball tool and I just want to run around the edges of these petals just to make the edges a little bit thinner and so they haven't got that just cut look. So if you haven't used a ball tool before, we're putting it half on the paste and half on the pad. You can see it curls up a bit. I'm just going to do that all the way down. Don't worry about that, we're going to get rid of those curls because if you look at Crocus petals, they haven't got frills on them. They're quite a straight petal. So now if you didn't have a Magnolia Veiner, you could use a rose petal veiner and just elongate it a little bit at the ends. But I will be doing a Magnolia tutorial in the next few weeks, so it might be worth investing in a Magnolia cutter and veiner. I would always say that not so much the cutters, because you can make templates, and I could put a template for this in the show notes if you'd like as well, let me know. You can make templates for the cutters, particularly when there's only 6 petals like this, but a good veiner really does make all the difference because it picks up the petal dust when you dust the petals in the end and it gives it that more realistic look. So if you can get more botanically correct veiners, then I would say that's a good investment. So we've thinned out our edges a little bit there. Now I'm going to bring over my 24 gauge wire. I don't need very long stems for this because crocuses have got really quite a short stem. So I'm going to cut this into 6 just to be as economical as I can with the wire. So I'm cutting that into 6 pieces and that should do for our flower. Try and make them equal, I haven't done very well there. And then bringing over our excess paste, I'm just going to take a tiny bit. Now if you've done my classes before, you know this cheats method of getting your petals onto the wires. I'm just going to twirl a tiny bit of this paste on here. Now this paste needs to be super sticky. So this is fresh paste. If you've let your paste dry out a little bit, or if it's not, it doesn't feel tacky to touch, this isn't going to work. So use some fresh paste. But I'm just going to put this on all of the wires. Now again, if you're slow at this, it is a bit of a knack to get used to doing this. Then just do 2 at a time or 3 at a time, 1 at a time even. But just for speed and for this tutorial, I'm just going to do all 6. So you don't need too much. If it feels a little bit bulky, you can always roll it out like so. We don't want this to be clunky at all. Now normally I would put these wires when I'm attaching them onto the back of the petal, but because with these flowers they're pretty much closed, we're going to put the wire on the centre of the petal. So I shall show you when we get to that bit. So that's all 6 wires with the fondant on. Now I'm going to move that just aside. I'm going to bring over my Magnolia Veiner. You can see it's a nice shape and it's a good shape for this crocus too. So what I'm going to do, normally I would put it on the back and put it in, but because we're going to see the backs, I'm going to put the wire on the front. So I'm going to pop that in first and get it nice and lined up so it's straight. Then I'm going to lay the wire with the flower paste on there and I'm going to press down and get our veins in. This is a lovely little veiner. And so we've got that nice curved shape and we are attached. So I'm going to do that for all 6. So now we've got our wires on our petal. I'm going to just take over a cutting wheel. You could use an X-Acto blade if you want for this, and I'm just going to trim just the tiniest little ends off to make that into a point. Just like so. Okay, now we're going to bring back our petal pad, and we're just going to again ball around these edges just to make them even finer. I know we've already done this, but they can never be too fine at the edges. So one more run round, just half on, half off. Try not to go over the holes. And then finally, I'm going to bring over the sponge. So this is really soft sponge pad. I'm going to place them on again with the back to the back here. And what I'm going to do is just run over them with the Dresden tool. So I'm going to use the pointy end of the Dresden tool, not the fatter end. And if you can see here, I'm just going to go around the very edge just to bring the edge of these petals in a little bit, just to curl them in a tiny little bit. And then when I've done that, I'm going to place them on these plastic spoons. I'm going to put them quite to the edge. I want them to take the shape of this spoon, but then holding where the wire goes so it doesn't pop out, I'm just going to give it a tiny little bend. So if you can see, it's sort of a curve and then a bend shape. I'll show you again with another one. So we're just going to run around the very edge of each of these just to bring in those sides a tiny bit. Take our plastic spoon, curve it in. Oops. We're not going to flick it off like that. Curve it in, making sure your wire doesn't pop out. Just put your thumb at the end of the wire. Just give the wire a tiny little bend. So you've got a little bend at the end of that. So we'll do that for all 6. Okay, so now I've left our petals to dry. We're going to work on our centre. So for this, we are going to take a piece of 26 or even 28 gauge wire. I'm just feeling which is which. Yeah. And we're going to cut this into 6 pieces. So taking some of our white paste again, we're going to twirl onto this wire a tiny, tiny thin stamen. Now I want this to be super thin, so I'm going to really roll it out. I'm going to take off the excess, and I want the end to come to a little bit of a point like that, so it's really, really fine. Let me see. You can see. So we need 3 of those. And then next we're going to put a thicker piece of flour paste onto this wire. So leave it a little bit thicker, not too thick. And we need to leave just a little bit above the end of where the wire ends. We need a little bit more paste above that. So we're going to do that for 3. So now we've got our 3 stamen here. we've got our 3 small ones, our 3 larger ones. I forgot to say we need a pair of either nail scissors or dressmaking scissors, and we're going to start to cut into this very end. So that's why you need to leave it a little bit above the wire. So hopefully you can see here, I'm just going to cut in half and into quarters, like so. And then, let's see if I can bring it nearer to the camera. I'm just going to cut in to make tiny, tiny little cut marks in here. So always look inside a real flower just to see how they are put together. So hopefully you can see that we've got, maybe on the front camera, we've got tiny little sort of frilly end. We're going to do that for all 3 of these. So next I'm going to bring over some parchment paper just so I don't make too much of a mess. I'm going to pop these on here. And first of all, I'm going to get some orange. So the centres of these crocus are orange. So I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to dust this up orange. So, and this is Fractal Colours orange. So these thicker ones, I'm just going to dust up plain orange. Make sure you get the end in there. Now the reason I do this is so all of the centre, the pistils and the stamen are all the same colour. If I did it with the paste and didn't brush it up, then there may be different colours, and I'll show you why when we get on to the next bit. So that's 2, and the third fatter one, that's 3. So that's the centre bit, and if you look at a real one, it does have sort of these 3 frilly kind of pistils. Now for these bits, these ones are usually covered in pollen. So I'm going to show you how I make pollen. So I've got just some semolina here. You could use gelatine as well. Your powdered gelatine does the same thing, but I prefer the semolina. What I do is just pop it into this tiny little bowl here, and it's still quite coarse. So I take the end of, I'm trying not to spill it everywhere, I've made a bit of a mess. I take the end of my rolling pin and I just give it a little grind around. Then what I do is add the same petal dust into there, and here's one I've made earlier. So you can see we've got nice orange semolina there, really nice and fine. Now that's when our egg white or our edible glue comes in. So I'm just going to take a little clean brush, if I could find one. Trying to find one that I haven't used for colours. And I'm just going to paint, I think this is probably green, I'm going to paint edible glue all the way around these thinnest stamen. So just paint every part of it, because we want this pollen, our fake pollen, to stick to it. Let me move that out of the way. And I've found the easiest way to do this is to have 2 little bowls and just to dip over, just to run it over. Now I think I haven't put enough glue. Let me try again. Because that isn't sticking very well at all, is it? Make sure you cover it really well. And we'll try again. So I'm doing all 3 together. And then I just keep tipping back and forth and twirling these stamen round. The thing is, these are going to be pretty well hidden, particularly if you've got a closed crocus, but the attention is in the detail, and this is what makes flowers look more realistic when you add this detail in. So think that's fine. I'm just going to pop these in upright in a piece of polystyrene just to let them dry off. Won't take long. And while I'm doing that, let me just move all this to one side, have a little tidy up. I shall save that. I'm going to bring over my florist tape, and I'm just using half width tape here, and I'm going to tape these together. You could put a tiny little bend on them if you want, and just have them bending outways. But they are, when you look at the real thing, they are pretty close together. So we're going to tape these three together like so. And I'm just, at this point, I'm going to add in a bit of a chunkier wire. So this is where my 22 gauge wire is going to come in. I'm going to just tape that on. This just gives it a little bit more structure. Now this doesn't need to be long because a crocus does not have a long stem. So I'll leave it like that for now. And then it's just given my stamen time to dry a little bit. I shall get some more tape. We don't want thick tape in the middle here. If you haven't used florist tape before, you just give it a stretch and it sticks to itself basically. So these I'm going to move out a tiny bit, and these sit just below this, the pistils. So you can see I'm just putting it a little bit further down than the others. So I'm going to space these out evenly. Get these all at the same height. And that just adds our little pollen into our centre. And that is the centre of your crocus. Now most of them have an orange centre like that. So you can see, you can move that out a little bit more if you'd like to, but I like them quite compact, just quite subtle. So that's our centre. So I'm going to put that to the side. Now, hopefully our white petals are going to be a bit more dry. I'm going to bring over another piece of paper here. What I did was made some yellow ones as well. So I've made these earlier. I'm going to show you how I dust up the yellow ones to get this kind of nice vibrant colour. So I had put a touch of just yellow flower paste in there, but you can see these are more of an orangey yellow colour. So what I used was this Rainbow Dust Sunset Yellow to get this colour I wanted. Now we need to just dust the whole thing, and this just brings it to life a little bit more because the petal dust sits in these lovely veins we've made. So that's going to go everywhere on the flower, so don't worry, you don't have to have great dusting techniques for this one. So that's all of the yellow on there. Now on these yellow ones, there is a little bit of green just at the base. So I'm using Fractal Colour Moss Green, and I'm just gonna, less is more with this. We don't want it everywhere. We're just gonna run that up, you can see, into that yellow. So you can do it on the inside as well if you want to. You're not really going to see the inside, but if you want to make your flower a little bit more open to show off that beautiful centre you've made, you can dust the inside as well. But if you're going to keep it closed, then you don't particularly need to. So you can see we're just subtly dusting up into the yellow. And then bringing over some green tape. Now we don't need full width at this point, so I'm just gonna, I haven't got any half width green tape at the moment. So let me move this all out of the way. I'm just gonna cut this in half down the middle like this. And because I really don't like to see just bare wire on flowers, I'm going to just tape this up a tiny bit. We don't need to go all the way down because there's only the chance we're going to see this very top bit. So I'm just going to do that for all 6. So that's all 6 done now. I'm going to bring over our centre and we're going to start taping this up. So you can bend it back a tiny bit and we're going to just start to tape up. I would only tape one at a time because you want to get them in the right place. So we're going to do 3 first of all in the first row. Make sure they're all at the same height. You're just going to place them at the bottom of where that centre starts on the wire. So you can't see where the wire is. That's why we've put our wire in the inside of the petals for this flower. So you can see that's the beginning. I'm just going to bring that down because I don't want the tape to be too clumpy at the top. And then I'm going to start to bring the other row in. And I'm just going to pop these in the gaps. So make sure they're all at the same height. You can bring them in a bit tighter if you want. We can manipulate them at the end. So I'm going to start to tape these. Some spare dust on there. I've got them sitting in petal dust, which isn't great. And 3. So I'm going to tape all the way up to the top and then all the way down the stem. For this bit you could use full width tape, which would be quicker. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do. To tape down. And then we can move these around a little bit and get them in the place we want them. So as you see, you can have them closed or you can have them open where you can see the centre a little bit more. So that's our yellow crocus. I'm going to pop that there and I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to quickly show you how, if I can wash my hands off here a little bit. If these are holding their shape, I can quickly show you the white ones because these just have a little touch of purple at the base. Got a brush with some purple on somewhere. Here we go. I've got Purple Haze by PME for this. Now these sometimes have lines all the way up, but you can just put a dash of purple at the bottom. So I'm going to add these into my little collection here. Bring it over and add these two in. So you can see that makes a really nice little decoration. Now finally, I'm going to show you how to quickly make a leaf. Now the leaf on a crocus is really, really thin. So you can do two ways. You can do a really thin one, or you can do a thicker one. And I'd like a mix of both. So I like some that are about this size, and I've just cut out a leaf shape here. I don't have a cutter, and I'm just going to cut around. And I like, it starts at the bottom of the flower and comes up. So I'm just going to roll this paste out, just give it a, this paste is already coloured, so I haven't coloured this green, but if you've only got white, just add a touch of green gel to it. Now I do have a long leaf veiner which would do, this is a tulip leaf veiner, and that would actually do for this, but I'm going to show you how to do it without a veiner because not all of you will have a tulip veiner. So we're going to use the same method again. We're going to put some paste on here, and we need these to stand up pretty straight, so I want the wire to go pretty much all the way. I don't mind a little flop at the top, but if you see on these ones, they're all standing up straight. So just roll that, take off any excess. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this on top like that. And you can do it either on your board or you can do it in between two bits of silicone. I'm just going to take the back side of a silicone veiner and I'm just going to press down pretty firmly. And there we go. And then to get the veins in, so the veins are just very, very straight lines, I'm just going to take my cutting wheel and not cutting all the way, obviously. Hopefully you can see that on the overhead. I'm going to just make lots of lines in it. And this will pick up the dust beautifully when we come to dust it. I'm going to do the back side as well to try and hide this. So when you start putting your veins in here, you're going to hide that excess paste. So once that's dusted up, you aren't going to see that. So that's how I make the leaves. I've done I'm going to leave that to dry. Just leave it either on the back of the sponge pad, because these need to be straight. They don't need to be curved at all. If you want to make the sides a little bit thinner, you can always bring over your ball tool and go around the edge, but we don't really want these to be frilly, these leaves. You could make it thinner like that and give a tiny bit of movement, but we want to dry them flat. We don't want any curve in them. So I'm going to leave that to dry. There's one I've made earlier, so we can dust it up. So you can see that this has got some nice veins in it. I'm just going to bring over our dust again. And I'm going to start to dust that up. So I've got the fractal colours, moss green. You could use racing green, whatever colour you prefer. It's quite a dark petal, this one. So I'm going to use some moss green on there. There you have it, your nice spring crocus. Hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoy the tutorials, please do subscribe. There'll be lots more coming in the spring. And if you want any help with the tutorials, come over to the Facebook group. The link's in the bio. It's Urban Flower Collective on Facebook, a private Facebook group where you can have free one-to-one tips. Also, if you need help with your cake business, come and join us at Urban Cake Collective. The link's in there too. And if you want more tutorials, there are some more spring tutorials on my Teachable site. Just click Urban Cake Collective below and you'll get to see those as well. So thanks for watching. It's been lovely to have you here. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.